Here with us now is the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute, Jamil Jaffer. Jamil, thank you for joining us. The Philadelphia corridor, it's been a focus of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and a real sticking point in the ceasefire deal. Does securing it change the equation?
Well, Anna, there's a debate about the Philadelphia corridor and how important it is. What we do know is historically, the tunnels beneath the Philadelphia corridor has been used to smuggle weapons and all sorts of supplies into Hamas. And the question is, do you need to control the surface of the Philadelphia corridor to prevent those tunnels from being identified, or to identify them and to take them out? And that's the debate going on. There are different views within the Israeli military. With the prime minister, obviously, Egypt, for its part, claims that the Philadelphia corridor hasn't been used for a while for smuggling. That's hard to believe, given the amount of weapons that we've seen in Gaza and the nature and scale of the attacks that Hamas has been able to keep perpetrating.
Yeah, and we keep hearing that they're sort of honeycombed throughout the region, difficult to figure out where they are, and often under things like mosques and hospitals and schools and libraries. On to this now. The body of that Turkish-American activist who was killed in the West Bank is back in Turkey awaiting burial, and Israel is admitting now its fault in her death. Do you think there will be any further fallout from all this?
Well, look, obviously a tragic death. This activist there, the Turkish-American activist who died protesting the West Bank. The real challenge here is how much pressure is now on the Israeli government, including with the death of the 6 hostages and now this death of this Turkish-American protester, and whether that changes the equation in these negotiations. The question also is Hamas willing to give up those hostages it continues to hold in Gaza, including a number of Americans? That's the real question, because ultimately what's going to happen is, if there's going to be a deal for a temporary or a longer-term ceasefire, it's going to have to involve the release of all of those hostages. And there's now a question of whether Israel gives safe passage to Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas. Obviously, they killed the last head of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran. The question now is what happens with Sinwar, and is there a deal in the offing? Whether the Philadelphia corridor is in play or not, that's another question.
And on to Syria involvement, the war seems to be widening even further following reports of an alleged Israeli attack on a missile production facility in Syria last Sunday, killing 18 people and injuring 37, according to Syrian authorities. So Israeli special forces flying over 125 miles into Syria overnight Sunday to take out the alleged missile plant, which was near the Syrian city of Masyaf. No Israeli casualties were reported there. But the facility was alleged to have been a partnership between Syria and Iran, producing missiles for Hezbollah, later used to attack Israelis. Israel has yet to comment on the raid, which was the deadliest attack on Syria in months. So, Jamil, this wasn't a simple airstrike. Israel actually sending ground forces into Syria to take out this facility. Why would they take such an enormous risk, considering the possibility of more hostages being taken if the raid failed?
Well, I think part of the challenge here is that we know that Iran is supporting these facilities. We know that Iran is supplying weapons to Hezbollah in the north and Lebanon. We know that they're putting these facilities together to conduct attacks against Israel. We know that they provided a significant amount of the funding to Hamas in the lead up to the October 7th terrorist attack. So we know that Iran is behind all of this. Likely the reason that Israel felt the need to go in on the ground with commandos, in addition to the long series of airstrikes they've conducted both in Syria and Lebanon, is they were hoping to gain some amount of intelligence from this raid and take some of that information away, in part to demonstrate both the Syrian government and the Iranian government's complicity in all this. It's also worth noting that the Syrian government is also propped up by the Russians. And so now, once again, we see that relationship between Iran, Russia, Syria, all coming together in these terrorist attacks. So in a lot of ways, what's happening in Ukraine is not that far apart from what's happening in the Middle East as well. This is really one fight, the West against these revisionist powers, Russia, Iran, China, North Korea.
And do they think the risk was worth it? Maybe they do. There are reports that before they destroyed the facility, the Israelis took documents, information. What kind of intelligence would really make an operation like this worthwhile?
Well, one, demonstrating the kind of capabilities that Syria has there that they're trying to build and give to Hezbollah, demonstrate the complicity of Iran in these activities. We know that Syria has long been propped up by both Russia and Iran, so that's not really in doubt. The question is, how active are the Iranians and how much can they be tied directly to these fights and to Hezbollah and to all these groups that they're supporting? Can the Israelis once again demonstrate and show that really what this is about is this is not just a fight about Hamas in the south, not in Gaza, not just a fight about Hezbollah in the north, but really about Iran and its malicious activities around the region, not just here, but with the Houthis as well as in Yemen.
Yep, you can't forget where everything's coming from. Founder and executive director of the National Security Institute, Jamil Jaffer, thanks for joining us on NewsNation Now. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Anna.